discussing how to conquer the galut and the desire for the money, which is the pollution of the hash. And he says that a person has to be able to overcome this to get geula. And that's why before the geula of the Jews from Egypt, who came to destroy the desire for money and mitaken, the desire for the money and the snake's pollution, is Yosef HaTzadik. He says, L'chen. HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent Yosef HaTzadik, Sheshalcho HaKadosh Baruch Hu Lemihaya Lebanav Kodesh Yaduru Mitzrayim. That's why he had to come before all the Jews came to Egypt. Who was the first Jew? First Jew who went was Yosef, in order to go and mitaken this idea. And he says, Ki Yadar Yosef Lachniya Lachlish. Yosef went first in order to weaken and to subdue the power of the pollution of the snake, which represents all the desires that Egypt represented. We know that Paro Merkava, Loton Nahash Elyon, Anikratanin, Kemova Zor Parshat Bo. As we know that Paro represented the physical incarnation of the Nahash. He was the chariot for the Klipa, which represents the Nahash, as Parshat Bo, Zor Parshat Bo says. And notice how interestingly in the actual Paro's headdress, they used to have a snake. They used to have a snake on the hats of the Paros used to wear. So he represents the snake, says the Zohar HaKadosh. And Egypt at that time was a superpower. They were the one that had all the money and all the power, and they were the ones with the superpower in the world. And that's because their desire was all about money and power. And therefore, that's why Yosef had to go first, in order to subdue it. And how did HaKadosh Baruch Hu enable Yosef to subdue it? Therefore, what did Hashem do? He brought hunger to the world. He brought hunger to Mitzrayim, into the world, in order to bring Yosef up to the empower and to subdue the desire for money. The more a person desires for money and chases money, the more concerned he is about the future. And he says, I have to save, and what's going to be, and I have to stockpile, and I have to make accounts, and I have to make, save. Who knows what's going to happen? Maybe I'll lose my money. So therefore, he's less and less emunah. And therefore, he says, what did the Kadosh Baruch Hu have to teach the world emunah? He had brought a ra'av, a hunger to the world, and Yosef was the one who fed everybody. That way, all of Egypt was subdued and under the control of Yosef HaTzadik. However, Yosef motzi bel'o mepiv, שדווקא מתוך תאוותו משיכתו לפרעה לחמדת הממון, הכניע את גאוות מצרים ונטלתה לה ממקום מקום, כמו שכתוב בארץ לא להם. So therefore, that's how Yosef was able to do the tikkun of coming first to Mitzrayim. So therefore, that's why he went first, and that's why the Jewish people were able to come after him. But you should know, Yosef took it madragazu. Yosef was able to be on the level where he used the money and he used the wealth for holiness and overcame this desire. Then what? Then the Jewish people were finally able to handle the wealth. What did Hashem make the Jews leave Mitzrayim with? A great wealth. Why would Hashem give them that? Because first Yosef was the wealthy and in charge, and he was made mitaken the tikkun, and then everyone else, then Israel was able to handle being wealthy. So therefore, a person has to know that you have to use your wealth and handle the wealth like these tzaddikim in order to really, really attain true wealth. He's mashmud b'zeh. כאשר משמש יהודי בכיסו מוצאו משנה, תלמוד, הלכה, מדרש, אגדה וזוהר, אמונת חכמים, מעשים טובים, שלקחו עמו בחוכמה. Then what? זהו הערך העצום ביותר שאוחז באמתחתו, זהו עשירתו של יהודי. A person who wants to be wealthy, he wants to use his wealth properly, he has to know what's his wealth. He says, Yanuka, your wealth is really your Mishnah that you know, the Talmud that you know, Halakha that you know, Midrash that you know, Agadah that you know, Zohar that you know, the faith in the sages that you have, the good deeds you do. All this is your true wealth. All this is what you should be looking forward to. All this is really what you're supposed to get joy from and be chasing. And then the end of it all, and then the chitzoniyut, the outer part of all this manifestation of these good ideas and good spirituality you have, and manifests itself also physically as gold and silver, as wealth. But the main thing is not the gold and the silver. The root of it all is the good deeds and the mitzvot and the Torah knowledge you have that brings bracha to your life, and then ends up coming out also being represented by physical wealth. But the gashmiut, the actual coins, the actual dollars, the actual amount that you have is nothing comparison to all this that we're speaking about before. And therefore, a person could be wealthy. If you notice, people could be wealthy and not happy whatsoever. But why? You have so much bracha. Why aren't you happy? Because those coins, those dollars sitting on the table, those blue bills, they don't mean anything. It's not real wealth. You know what real wealth is? A guy could pay all his bills, and then he comes home and he has a family to speak to, and he has kids to respect him, and then he goes to spend time with them and enjoys their presence. A wealthy guy, he goes and he uses his money to do mitzvot, and he builds his community, and he sees needy people and he helps them. A person who's really wealthy, he enjoys from his life, because this enables him to live his life. People think wealth is your life. You're wealthy, that's it, that's your life. Now enjoy wealth. No. Wealth is supposed to be a supplement to your real healthy life. How do you get a real healthy life? Is with halacha, midrash, talmud, zohar, emunah chachamim, good deeds. So therefore, a person who has wealth doesn't mean he has a life. You have to build the life. The wealth helps you build a life. It's a hammer. Money is a hammer. You have a lot of hammers. Hazak baruch. You have a lot of hammers. Now what? You have to build with these hammers something. You have to do something with these hammers. Therefore, just because I have to be wealthy, I'm going to be wealthy and to be happy. You're going to have a million hammers. So now what? You're happy. You're going to eat the hammer. The hammer is going to build your life. He's going to be a good person for you. He's going to learn. He's going to build your community for you. The hammer is by itself. No. You have to be a person, Adam, to do with this money. And how are you going to do that? Midrash, halacha, talmud, zohar, emunah chachamim, maasim tovim. So therefore he says, Yosef and Moshe, they were able to tap into this level of living the wealthy life. And therefore Hashem gave them all that wealth, and that was a sign, and that was an example, and they were able to give the koach to all the Jewish people afterwards. That's why they saw them. Then Hashem said, Anna, now all the Jewish people can leave Mitzrayim with wealth, and they'll be able to handle it. But if a person is not on that level, the wealth can bury him alive, Chas v'shalom. He can get carried away. He thinks the AMG, the X7 is going to make him happy. He thinks the rose gold AP and is going to make him happy. He thinks that throwing a $100,000 brief is going to make him happy. He thinks that, wearing Gucci, Lucci from head to toe is going to make him happy. But all these things, it's not. It overtook you, and you get busy speaking about all the details of what you're going to spend your money on and what you have, comparing to like show and tell with your friends and Sadik and Shul. You make shul into Sadik by going and showing off and doing show and tell. But then what? He didn't use the hammers to build his life. His life is not a real life. And he thinks, why am I not happy? I have everything I need. Why am I not happy? Because you have to look to tzaddikim, how they live their lives. And the real wealth is the mitzvot, Torah, maasim tovim, how good of a human you are. And then, if you notice real wealthy people who are really, really great people, they're very humble, very easygoing, they're very respectful, they treat everybody the same. They worked on themselves a lot as a person, and their wealth, they don't make their wealth into a big thing about their life. They don't make it a big asset in their life. They don't talk about their wealth. They're not all day talking about Gucci and Ferragamo and their Mercedes and all that stuff. They're not into that stuff. They know that's not the main thing. It just supplements, it just helps. And that's why we have to be very careful to teach our children this. A lot of times the children can get into the brands and talk about brands and flip people's watches, flip people's ties, and they think the brands are everything. And then they get mistaken and they fall into the trap of the wealth. So therefore, we should look to Moshe and Yosef and realize the main thing is the Ashirut, the Kedusha, the holiness, the real wealth, and that manifests itself in the real world as the physical wealth. Baruch Adonai Olam.